West Denver. Sleep deprived and heavily caffeinated.
All right, let's do this then.
This is the Jeff and Bill Show.
I don't agree with that.
They don't always agree, but hey, at least they have coffee.
Coffee.
And each other.
It's always
help
good to
us.
kick
Lord
off
bless him. We need all the help we
this
can
show,
get.
especially on a Monday morning with some blues like that.
Yeah, it's going to be a little rainy, a little cold today. We're rolling into the fall, into the winter time. So, yeah, goodbye sunshine and such. But got a little bit of a reason to smile. Broncos did well yesterday.
Did great.
It was amazing.
It was fantastic. I'm excited to talk to Blake about that.
I too. We're gonna have to.
That was not a pass interference at the end there. That guy was. The ball was behind the guy on the left, uncatchable.
Yeah, I don't think so either. But I have to also check my bias sometimes. I understand that. I'm like, no, don't you see what helmet he's wearing? He can't be illegal. Yeah, exactly. But that wasn't pass
I'm a
interference.
talk radio host in the town I grew up in with the team I love. I'm going to be 100% biased. There's not a single thing the Broncos could ever do wrong. We've got a lot to talk about today. Good morning, 6:01 a.m. You've tuned into the Jeff and Bill Show, News Talk 710 KNUS. I'm your co-host, Jeff Hunt, along with Bill Thorpe, bringing you the freshest insights, hottest takes from the right, left, and center. We'll talk the Broncos win with Blake Olson coming up here in a second. This one, it's just so funny, and if we can't laugh, we'd all die. RTD plans to borrow $539 million for diesel buses. That was after they voted for over $50 million for electric. And they're going to borrow $539. By the way, at this point,
That's weird.
over 70% of the revenue for RTD comes from sales tax. Then you get grants. It's like less than 10% comes from fares. This thing is entirely propped up at this time by you, the taxpayer. Time to let it go. But we're going to talk about the RTD, that cops not responding to ICE officials in Chicago. Was there an order made from the Chicago police leadership to stand down when it comes to responding to ICE officials and the rest federal officials getting some heat and protesters kind of pushing back and, man, I got to get my mind working this morning.
Yeah. But yeah, we'll have to see what happens to the
protests
protesters.
on that
Yeah.
one.
We're doing the protest, and there was a situation where the ICE, the federals, were blocked in by 5 to 10 cars, and a woman was there with a semi-automatic gun, and she ended up getting shot by the people involved. And now that's a danger. And so we'll talk about whether or not, how much local law enforcement should get involved, shouldn't. But the other thing is this highlights the tensions that currently exist between the federal government and local law enforcement on many levels. So, yeah, we will chat about that later today. It'll be interesting.
And we're going to talk a a federal appeals court here in this district ruling that Catholic preschools cannot, quote unquote, discriminate against LGBT students, meaning that if you're going to take state funding as a parish for your preschool, you have to admit anybody and everybody. Is this right? Would little Jewish preschools be forced to allow Muslim families and students to attend their schools? Do you think that's right? We'll get into that in the 8 o'clock hour, plus a weird sentencing coming out of the Brett Kavanaugh. If you remember, this guy shows up to try to assassinate Brett Kavanaugh following the Roe v. Wade ruling and stops, sees the police outside of Brett Kavanaugh's house, calls 911 himself, says he's there to kill Brett Kavanaugh. He's having murderous thoughts and gets arrested. But part of the sentencing and the light sentencing that took place, the ruling that came out on that, was in part because the guy was transgender. The judge, a Biden appointee, going, well, he may not be treated so well in prison as a transgender guy. The Trump administration may not allow him to get the hormone treatments that he wants. So therefore, we're going to reduce the sentence to 8 years. I'd just like to point this out. that guy that showed up to shoot Brett Kavanaugh had guns, had zip ties, still a lighter sentence than Tina Peters. We'll get into all of this and more. Now it's time for News and Comment with Blake Olson.
Blake Olson.
Blake Olson, News and Comment.
Hey, good morning. 44 and cloudy in Denver, expecting a high of only 57 today. This portion of the news sponsored by Pastor Camp Heating and Air Conditioning at 303-777-1234 to learn more about special savings opportunities on Lennox equipment. Our top story, the CBI says former San Miguel County Sheriff's Deputy in Norwood School District SRO Jesus Niblis is in custody after being on the run for 3 months. He's facing dozens of counts of sexual exploitation of a child and other related charges. Officials say he was arrested last week in Mexico. A federal judge is granting a temporary order blocking DJT from deploying members of the federalized National Guard to Portland. People are losing their minds there and in Chicago as troops do their job in the Windy City and the communist state of Portland. The city of. The Broncos were down 14 and fought back against the reigning Super Bowl champions. Nick Bonito registered 2.5 sacks and got help from his teammates.
Here they come. They got him from behind. That is McMillan, who comes up from the secondary to get the sack, the 5th of the game for the Denver defense.
And they had 6 total by the Broncos defense. Excellent job. And then the offense.
Denver's longest play of the day, 34 yards. Back they go to Ingram. Balanced and dives. Touchdown, Denver. Evan Ingram.
That's his first touchdown as a Bronco. Bo Nix, 24 of 39. They were down by 1 at that point. 242 yards and a touchdown for Nix. J.K. Dobbins, 79 yards and a TD. Cortland Sutton, 8 catches, 99 yards. And this was the 2-point conversion after that touchdown.
Here's the rollout, the throw, it's there. And the Broncos have taken the lead. That was Franklin on the receiving end.
And Nance has to be careful in the press box because there's all these Philadelphia people. I could tell he didn't want to raise his voice too much. Here's Nick's. I think I have Bo Nix here, yeah.
It's awesome. It's a great win. It proves that we can go on the road and beat these tough teams, and we can be a tough team to play. So that's good for our confidence. It's good for going into this trip.
Wow, what a comeback by the Broncos. Let's hear more from Bo Nix.
Just need one drive. Let's go down the field, one play at a time. Let's put a drive together. We stopped talking about points. We said, look, we got to go get a touchdown. Points is not just what we want. We want to go get 6. And we kind of spoke it into existence. We just kept on going.
Huge victory against the reigning Super Bowl champions. And you can't say enough about that defense. Just bringing the heat all day long. So,
do you think that was pass interference at the end?
Oh, you know what? Every team is going to have it's 50-50 every game. Every team is going to have a pass interference
you're out there on
that they
the
don't
field.
agree
Are you
with.
going to throw the flag or not?
I probably would not have. No.
Yeah, I don't think so either because the ball was thrown behind him on the left.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't even think it was reachable. Let alone,
if it's not catchable, no, I'm right there with you. I mean, guys are dragging and pulling and tugging every play. So, I mean, it's difficult. You're in Philly also. So just the fact that the Broncos were able to do that in Philly and against that team and come back like that is pretty amazing. It tells you a lot about their character and who they are as pros because they did not fold. And on that touchdown, they cut it to 1. It was Let me see. I'm going to turn this down but let me see here. Beautiful play by Nix because the pressure came and he knew linebacker's about to hit him. He knows in a split second, once that linebacker's coming at him and he knows his receiver is right there at the line of scrimmage wide open because the linebacker just came and they let him go to open it up for one receiver to be open, and he did the rest on that touchdown play right here.
Back they go to Ingram, balanced and dives. Touchdown, Denver.
But it was a great play by Nix to just feel it, read it in a split second, and went through his progressions quickly, a little bootleg, and he saw the linebacker coming right in his face, and he knew, hey, I have one guy open right here, and just dumps it off to him, and then he does the rest into the end zone. But Broncos, if they could keep this up on defense, I mean, anything is possible. So huge. Pass interferences, you could talk about those all day.
I was telling my son, we were rolling through, of course, it was Broncos in the morning. Well, early, watching some soccer, and then Broncos in the morning, and then Red Zone in the afternoon. And he and I were making comments about how difficult it must be to be a defensive back in the NFL right now.
Oh,
because
right now,
yeah,
anytime.
Well, yeah, but again,
you
and I go back to back when in the '80s, there was a whole lot more that you could do as far as hanging on to him, tugging him, hitting him early.
Oh yeah, that's
dragging
true.
him down.
That's true.
And so
absolutely,
the lack of contact, what I find real difficult with defensive backs right now, is because of that lack of contact. If the quarterback and the wide receiver are on the right timing, when that receiver breaks, you got about a second and a half of there's nothing the defensive back can do. Because of the change in momentum, because the defensive back has to react, and so if the timing is there, it's really hard. And so many times I look at the defensive back that even if the pass is completed, as long as you wrap up afterwards, okay, good job. That's about the best in some situations you can ever get to, because you can't grab the guy, can't touch the guy. But I do appreciate, and I'm watching this all the time, how the defensive backs have learned where and when they can grab, because you see them grab the bottom of the shirt right at the edge, right when they turn, but you hold for a fraction of a second because all you're trying to do is slow the guy's momentum. And then when the ball's coming, you get your other arm inside and you're grabbing between the body with there because you're hoping to shield the ref from seeing it. So again, clever. Yeah, I was appreciating the hand fighting that I was watching, but yeah, it's awful. You can get called for pass interference for sneezing on the guy in the NFL right now.
Absolutely. The greatest athletes in the world.
Yeah.
Bar none, in my opinion. Defensive backs, corners especially. Corners in the NFL, if you're a corner or you're one of the nickels or you're a DB and you're playing in the NFL, you are the greatest athlete in the world because the receivers know where they're going. Okay, they're running full speed, and you're backpedaling at their speed. You have to react after they make a move or two or three moves. You typically, the receivers have a higher vertical than a DB. At the same time, a lot of those guys have equivalent verticals to the receivers, and the toughness involved.
There's one thing defensive backs can't do.
What's that?
Catch the ball. Because it's a wide receivers.
Because then you'd be a wide receiver.
Yeah,
very
that's
good
one thing.
point.
That's a one thing.
So the best
Great
description of football
Absolutely.
players that I've ever heard that makes it all make sense for me is 250-pound ballerinas.
That's true.
Like their
Great point.
ability to turn, jump, twist.
Yep.
All that's what makes them unicorns. Is they went around a country of 100 plus million people and found the 250, 300-pound ballerinas and put them together in a league.
Absolutely.
I gotta tell you, I was watching my world of soccer and stuff. I was seeing some people that I watch commenting on NFL games that are coming over. You know, we had the one in Dublin. There's going to be one in London. You know, Broncos playing this weekend over there. And it was really funny. There's this one guy that I watch, and let's just say, big dude. I mean, guys like 6'3", pushing 320, and not in a good way. You know, he's festively plump, and he's happy about it. That's just that's his thing, okay? So, and he understands that, and he owns it. But he was commenting on watching football, and he's like, but I got to say, he goes, I do appreciate the fact that this is a sport for fat people. He goes, I kind of understand that. He goes, yes, they're very athletic. Yes, they can move better than I can. He goes, but, he goes, I do appreciate seeing someone out there performing a sport that at least looks like me in in a shadow. He goes, I appreciate that.
Exactly.
So the way that he put it, that was fantastic. I was like,
No,
I like
I
that.
agree.
Yeah.
I agree. There's a position for everyone.
Yes.
Every body type.
Yes, yeah.
But you are correct, and maybe he is correct. They are great athletes because the assumption is that offensive linemen are not good athletes, and half of those guys can actually dunk a basketball, which is amazing. An athletic 340-pound offensive lineman who can dunk a basketball, that's pretty impressive.
Now, and this is what people don't understand about the extra weight that NFL linemen carry. Now, we're going to do a little sciencey thing here. The reason NFL linemen need to and should carry the extra weight is a counterweight system. That extra weight around them makes them harder to push backwards when you're fighting against them. And also when you're pushing forwards, it gives you more physical momentum. So it actually makes what you're doing more difficult to either protect against or defend because of what you're doing. And what I mean by that is, let's say that you've got a toddler, and that toddler weighs 40 pounds. You got another toddler, big chunky kid. He's like 70 pounds. And both of them do that dead weight, that, you can't pick me up. That 70-pound kid all of a sudden feels like he's 250. And that's what it is when those linemen squat and they settle, it is really hard to move because of the counterweight that physics is doing with them with the extra weight they carry. Then when you can get that momentum going forwards, you get 2 steps on some of those guys, those defensive linemen or even offensive linemen when they're run blocking. Now that counterweight has given them more physics and more power going forward. So the 325 guy that is totally cut has a certain amount of weight, but if the dude's carrying a little bit of extra puffness around there, he can use that extra weight as extra momentum, and so he can push harder than a guy that's 320. That's why it works. That's why it's silly to see those guys with the big tummies, but that's the reason. There's actually some science behind it. It helps them. Yeah, it's a counterweight system. Yeah.
You are correct.
Blake, did you play football?
Yeah, I did.
What was your position?
I played quarterback, and we were we were a triple option team. So if you've ever
you were running a lot.
Oh yeah, I was basically like a running back. So we would throw it 3 or 4 times a game. A lot like Air Force, with the triple option, and the academies run this. But I mean, it's option football, and I laugh now because quarterbacks in the NFL, I never thought that I would see quarterbacks in a shotgun. And basically, for the most part, they're reading an outside linebacker or a defensive end, which is what we call a mesh. You have the ball in your hand and you're reading the defensive end or the linebacker with the mesh. People call it a handoff, whatever. To me, it's a mesh and you're reading it. So if the defensive end were to shoot in at the running back, you're pulling it, and then the quarterback becomes a running back. So that's what triple option is. In triple option, then you have a running back, flaring outside, and you pitch it if another guy comes and is ready to blow you up. So that's a triple option. But NFL football is basically double option on every play. You see the mesh. It's funny to watch because I'm like, man, I never thought I would see this in the NFL. So it's a combination of shotgun, pro-style football from the 70s and 80s to an option game in the backfield. So, that's what
you played in high school? Who'd you play for in high school?
And I also, what I like to say is I practiced at Troy University. I never played in a game. So I loved it because I was invited to walk on at Troy, which is Southeast Alabama, and we were a Division II program at that time, and won 2 national championships, and I had nothing to do with that. I was on the scout team, but I loved it because you're talking about Division II football, a national championship team. And we had a couple guys playing the USFL, the old USFL, and a couple guys playing the NFL for 5 or 6 years. But the bottom line was I wanted to do it. I knew I probably wouldn't start, but I knew I had to experience everything that goes into football and being a student athlete. And it's difficult. But it's a beautiful experience, and the game is violent and it's physical and it's tough and all that. But there's nothing like it. There's nothing like playing and hearing the roar of the crowd. Yes.
Talk to the audience about the difference in the speed of the game when you went from high school to college. Because when I went to high school to college, that was like, yeah, it cut your decision-making time in half, if
Absolutely.
not even quicker. You're like, ooh, okay, this is different.
So true.
And it took me about half season to catch up. I was behind for the first half season, yeah.
Absolutely, Billy. And everyone thinks of the speed. Well, okay, the defensive backs, the running backs, the wide receivers. Here's where the speed of the game just freaked me out. The first day, all right?
Yeah.
When I walked up to the center, and I was used to bending my knees to get the snap, and I'm walking up to this all-conference center, okay, and we would rotate behind 6 centers, the quarterbacks take snaps, right? So I'm under center, and I'm like, holy Lord. I mean, I didn't have to bend down. His butt was right about at my chest,
oh my
right?
Lord.
And the ball just like, boom, it was there in my hands. I'm like, oh, my God.
Wow.
You know, I mean, the very first time, I received a snap from a college center who had been playing for 4 years and just holding on to the football in order to turn and mesh with the fullback and read everything, because Troy was a triple option team as well. So same type of thing. I mean, it's just, the speed and the quick, and then, the bodies were huge, man.
Yeah, they were.
I mean, up front, and we were not a huge physical football team. We were like Air Force, you had a little smaller offensive linemen, but they were still huge, compared to what I was used to. So the speed is ridiculous. The NFL, when you're talking about the corners and the receivers, all these guys, they're world-class athletes, bottom line. That's why when I hear young people say, oh, that guy's trash, this guy's trash, oh, that guy. If you wear a uniform in the NFL, you're a world-class athlete.
Yeah, you are. You are like the top half of 1%. Yeah, it was it's like talking about, okay, so Belichick got housed this weekend at North Carolina. Clemson
watch
just
that
did
entire
him dirty. Yeah, but of course it's Clemson. What are you expecting?
And Clemson is down this year.
That's the thing. And I talked to one of my kids, was like, what the hell is this? And I said, here's the difference. But the difference in athletes from the top Super Bowl winning NFL team to team 32 are fractions of margins as far as the difference in players.
Yes.
But the difference between the champion of college football and the team that's ranked number 50 is miles of difference. There is miles of difference in that, because you're all competing at the NFL on the margins with these phenomenal athletes. That is not the same. My guess is that if you had North Carolina's team and they showed up to Clemson to walk on, you might get 2 of those players to make the team. Maybe 2, maybe 3. That's it. Total.
Correct.
Out of the entire team. So,
which is amazing because Division I football players are great athletes as well.
Yeah, they are. They're phenomenal athletes. Yeah.
Yeah, phenomenal.
But
absolutely.
Clemson's playing in a different league than North Carolina. It's totally different recruiting class.
Yeah.
Everything about them is completely different because they're SEC. Yeah.
And 99% of college football coaches don't have their girlfriends walking around the sidelines in high heels and short skirts.
Yeah.
So believe it or not,
it's such a clown show.
Oh, it is. Yeah.
It is, guys. It was. I mean, there were like 12 people in the stadium at that North Carolina game. I mean, just embarrassing. I mean, that's going to last another. I'm sure they're probably going to pull the plug in a month, I would guess.
They're trying to figure out how much it's going to cost to make him go away. That's the issue is the idea of how much does it cost to pay out the contract. I know some people in international soccer right now with their teams where their teams are not playing well, but it will cost the teams as much to make the coach go away than to keep him. And so they're not like, okay,
exactly.
And that's the question. North Carolina has got to start balancing the pros and the cons of this pile of money is going to have to be paid to Belichick to make him go away. One, who do we get next? But two, what does that do to our balance sheet? Yeah, they might just have to tough this out for a while and lump it, which would be hilarious.
No, you're right. You're exactly right. That's the other issue. And plus, it's a basketball school.
Yeah,
so
exactly. Nobody's going there to watch.
They're like, okay, whatever. Let's just win the national championship in basketball.
I find it hilarious that it becomes the perfect example of, or Belichick's the perfect example of just win and we'll ignore everything else in your life.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if he was winning championships, people wouldn't care at all.
Oh, no.
The girl walking around.
It would be
25-year-old girlfriend walking around in high heels on the sidelines. But if you lose, well, now we're going to talk about it all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no question. If they won, that would be a whole different story. I agree, and I would be the first one saying it.
Oh yeah.
So I can't say anything.
We still got to ask you, Blake, the idea that of all the places that Belichick could have started his college career, North Carolina.
There's only one I think they would take.
Oh, I know, but the idea idea is you're not going to take one of the already set up programs. You're going to have to go through a rebuild at a team that's not going to be able to compete at the highest levels. Ow! I mean, you were already playing from behind. Already doing that. That was a questionable. Yeah.
No, that's true. But when you think you're the greatest coach that's ever been created,
it's true.
I mean, that's what coaches want. Coaches, honestly, they do want a challenge, though.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, then imagine if he would, he would turn North Carolina into a national power, which in this day and age could happen if he were to all of a sudden pull 15 of the best players in the country to come to North Carolina. It could happen. I'm not saying it couldn't, but that's what every.
Sorry, I had something in my throat.
Yes.
Yeah. But all of a sudden, the recruiting class changed dramatically with Dion, and the team is much better, appreciably better.
Dave texted in North Carolina's going to take Pete Carroll next.
There you go. He's got plenty of years left.
Yes, he does. Oh, yeah, he's got lots of years left.
No doubt. Pete Carroll's right there waiting. He's waiting to pounce on it.
Exactly, he is.
All right, I'll give it back to you, but first let's hear from Bad Bunny on SNL.
Logro de todo, demostrando que nuestra huella y nuestra aportación en este país nadie nunca la podrá sacar ni borrar. If you didn't understand what I just said, you have 4 months to learn.
Forget that. No, not going to watch it.
They may end up with an alternative halftime show. I mean,
it's going to happen.
Turning Point's really organizing on this. I think the NFL stepped into it on this one.
It's gonna happen. We got to. I'm gonna push for it. I'm gonna push for people to turn the channel and then come back in the third quarter. No matter what, go watch Gilligan's Island.
People in my world are so frustrated that the NFL has done this that they don't even want to watch the Super Bowl.
Oh, I agree. I think there's a lot of people just like that. But that is a difficult challenge. But hey, I'm going to push for it. 42 in Lafayette, 43 in Castle Rock, 44 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Your Denver forecast here on KNUS this early Monday. A few passing clouds this morning. Temperatures around 45 by daybreak. For the rest of your Monday, partly sunny, highs in the upper 60s. Partly cloudy tonight, lows down to 45. Cooler with a chance for showers on Tuesday, highs near 60. Weather brought to you by L&L Heating and Air Conditioning. For quick, trustworthy, and dependable service, call L&L Heating and Air Conditioning at 720-851-1691. Visit them online at bestdenverhvac.com. That's bestdenverhvac.com. You'll be comfortable with L&L. I'm day weather meteorologist Patrice Sutter in the 710 KNUS Weather Center.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Headline coming from the Denver Post. RTD plans to borrow $539 million for diesel buses. Sidelining hopes for electric. It's such a clown show at this point. Such a clown show. RTD directors for years have prioritized converting Metro Denver's aging fleet of 995 diesel-powered buses to cleaner, quieter, battery electric vehicles in line with Colorado's climate goals. But agency officials are buying new diesel buses instead, planning to borrow $539 million for a diesel bus purchase over the next 5 years, according to documents reviewed by the Denver Post. It marks a behind-the-scenes change of direction, reflecting an increasingly complicated landscape for public transit. Golly, I so want to just shut this whole thing down. The Regional Transportation District has long been a leader, pioneering the introduction of modern buses intended to reduce pollution. The problem is that RTD's current diesel buses, quote, need to be replaced at the end of their useful life, unquote, and, quote, this may or may not coincide with the availability of charging facilities, unquote, and electric buses. RTD Chief Executive and General Manager Deborah Johnson told the Post in an emailed response to questions she did not consent to answer questions in person. Yeah, I'd run away from this thing too. Johnson blamed the impact of tariffs on the supply chain, scarcity of original equipment manufacturers, Buy America, Build America restrictions, and lack of availability of low or zero emission vehicles. The plan to buy diesel buses, contained in a financial document in an email sent to RTD elected directors this month, would delay a transition to electric buses celebrated on RTD's website. So they put it on their website. Yay, we're going to electric buses. Never mind. By the way, we need to borrow $539 million to do this. It could lock RTD into diesel transit for at least another decade. Across the agency's 2,342 square mile service area, because transit agencies typically run buses 12 years or 500,000 miles, whichever comes first. The shift began in May when RTD's directors approved originally $51 million to transfer funds to purchase 47 new buses for Denver's East Colfax Avenue rapid transit lane in 2027 that will burn diesel, contrary to initial staff assurance that these would be hybrids. Public transit agencies in other U.S. cities are converting their fleets to electric hybrid buses. Some bought 60-foot electric hybrid buses made by a U.S. company, New Flyer, listen to this, which no longer produces them.
That's interesting. They're hybrid. That's the question I've got with the idea of doing electric buses is I don't think it makes any sense unless you're doing something like the 16th Street Mall, only because of charge times and run times. For me, the electric vehicles would make a hell. And again, I believe that RTD doesn't do planning very well at all.
They don't do anything well. Yeah, they don't do anything. They can't turn the light switch on well.
Well, I'm not certain I'd go that far. And the reason that I've got a little bit of, I'm not as disconnected from RTD as you are, because when I was growing up in Denver, that's how I got around. Yeah. So I understand the functionality, and I have got miles and miles and miles under my butt sitting in the rough, tough, and dirty. And so I get how it can be functional, but I believe that it has lost its way. Part of it, okay, the electric vehicles, those accessoride, the small, handicapped, and elderly, those should be electric. Large buses, diesel. I don't believe at this point, based on where we are in technology.
Why do we even have large buses? I have never seen an RTD bus full. I
haven't been on them enough, but here's the thing. This is the question I have is, what I would do is if I was put in charge of RTD, I would start super serving some of our really heavily traveled lines. That's where I would focus on what we are doing. And that would be things like, what I would be doing is I would be looking at arteries. And again, I'm just spitballing right now. I would be looking at the arteries and trying to funnel people from those arteries into downtown as quickly as possible, then bringing them out of downtown as quickly as possible along those arteries. Chances are someone is trying to use something like Colorado Boulevard to get downtown to then go out towards 6th Avenue to wherever they're going. Chances are, so basically that's the idea. That's where I would be super serving. The idea that a bus runs necessarily through my neighborhood, I can see the value because I do see regular bus riding, but you're right. The bus that rolls through my neighborhood is never more than halfway full. So I would have a question about that line and how it has to be serviced. But I also understand as a kid how difficult it is walking to the next bus stop or to get to the next bus stop if it's not convenient, and is that a detriment, especially in some of the weather, as far as what we want to do. And if we're talking about people that might be elderly, disabled, young, using the bus, probably not the people we want going out and wandering out through the snowstorms. And
I agree with that.
Yeah.
It just seems like it's an investment in such an outdated technology, right? Like everything is going to personal service. We're all going to have Waymos here soon. I would much rather put money towards Waymos and the ability to have somebody that, you know, be able to get into one of those cars and go to where they need to, rather than funding big diesel buses that are halfway empty. It just seems wildly inefficient. Here's a line in this that I thought was wild in this article. Let me see if... Okay. RTD directors haven't decided whether to approve borrowing $539 million for the diesel buses, which would add to the agency's current $2.7 billion debt. It's already $2.7 billion in debt. They want to add another $539 million to it. Sales taxes paid by residents of 8 metro Denver counties fund 70% of RTD's $1.2 billion annual budget. 70%. Has nothing to do with actual ridership. And in fact, I think if you add grants into that, it's rough where, if I remember correctly from previous episodes we've done, Bill, it's like 10% actually comes. This thing is so wildly inefficient and propped up by people that don't even use it that there's got to be a more efficient, personalized way to make this happen cheaper.
Well, I think the hiccup there is you're looking for something that is personalized, and that is not the role of mass transit. Mass transit never can be personalized because it has to move large groups of people. So it can't be. RTD is never going to be able to Waymo. And what I mean by that is they'll never be able to come to your house and pick you up and then drive you somewhere.
Why not?
But that's the accessoride. That would be because it is more expensive per ride to transport every person individually than it is to transport someone in a group as far as mass
sure?
transit.
You think so?
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the case.
Yeah. No, it is. And simply because of this, that if I'm paying, okay, here's the idea. If we have, let's just say that we have 15 people on a bus. That bus is not very full. But the cost of taking, the Waymo and taking 15 Waymos to someone's individual house and then Waymoing them down there over the total cost of running the bus is going to be less expensive over time.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, it is.
For a few reasons. One, Waymo, you don't need to pay somebody to drive. So the robot's doing it. But
RTD would still pay for it. RTD would still be on the hook necessarily because remember the ride is subsidized. The person that is getting into the Waymo, if you're saying that the person getting in the Waymo needs to pay the Waymo price, then that's not what you're doing in the bus. The bus is a lower subsidy. The bus is a lower cost. So you'd have to subsidize the cost. You would have to. Otherwise it's not
sort of, because it's artificially low.
But it's again
the bus is artificially low because like 80-90% of it's paid by somebody else.
Again, but the idea is if you're talking about equivalency, then you have to have a subsidized ride because now, hang on, hang on a sec, because the idea being that if you're saying, well, the solution is to have everybody pay more, tell you what, if we would make the bus fares the equivalency of what would be like a Waymo ride, RTD would start taking in a lot more money. They would bring in more revenue because every individual that steps on that bus or train would pay more. So revenue would increase. So that's what you're talking about. So if we're talking about a revenue increase, okay, that's fair. But if we're talking about ROI and basic economics, it has to be the same cost, because then you look at, if we're charging X amount of dollars, to get on the bus and to use public transport, if we're going to use another system, what is the cost efficiency of using that system at that price point? That's you have to evaluate it. If you evaluate it at a higher price point, then you have to evaluate the RTD at also a higher price point, if that makes sense. The price points have to be equivalent to then justify efficiency if we're looking at it that way, that who makes the best choice efficiently to move large numbers of people. And usually, just like when you have a truck, Amazon delivery drivers don't deliver one package. They put lots of packages onto the truck and then go out and deliver them all individually.
How
That's
much
the
is
idea.
Amazon subsidized in there?
No, but hang on, the subsidy is irrelevant. What I'm talking about
I think it's wildly irrelevant.
No, hang on a second.
Irrelevant.
Jeff, I think you're focusing on the wrong thing. All I'm talking about is the efficiency that you gain from moving a bunch of packages or people in a vehicle versus the efficiency that is lost when you're moving an individual package or people through a service or a vehicle. That's it. That's all I'm talking about. Subsidies and that I'm just talking about the efficiency. Putting more people into a bus and moving them is usually going to be more efficient and cost effective than individual. It's that it does create some problems, and there is some vast inefficiencies, because if you're only filling that large mass transit vehicle to a portion of it, your efficiency goes down to where Waymo is more efficient if you have 3 people in it versus 1. But the efficiency then goes down. Same thing. Same principle holds true. So there is a strong critique in the one that you have about the fact that these buses and trains aren't even a quarter full most of the time. And that is an inefficiency in the delivery system inside of RTD. That's the basic inefficiency. They're spending a lot of money moving very, very few people in large vehicles. That's inefficient.
Yes.
That's what needs to change.
Yes.
Yeah, that's where I agree with you on that.
Okay.
Yeah, that's why you're right about that one. I'm not certain we could get to an individual Waymo system that would be less expensive though. But yeah, oh well.
Join the conversation. Give us a call, 303-696-1971. RTD planning to borrow $539 million for diesel buses, in part because they can't find electric buses that fit the right size because the company in America that does them no longer does it. And they need to borrow additional money, even though they're $2.7 billion in debt from past projects, because sales taxes cover about 70% of the total revenues going into fund RTD. Really, operating costs or passenger fares become about 10% of the actual revenue. This thing is totally propped up. It's wildly inefficient. Its ridership is down. Its ridership is down while its spending is up. This thing is so broken, they want to borrow another $539 million for diesel buses. What do you think? Would love to hear from you. 303-696-1971. Text us on the Dan Caplis Lawn Text line at 720-819-5115. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
This is Denver's Talk Leader, News Talk 710, KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jeff and Bill Show. Text messages are already hot on this one. RTD has got to spend $539 million for a fleet of diesel buses. They've already agreed to spend $50 million on it. They're already $2.7 billion in debt. 70% of RTD's budget is covered by sales taxes that have nothing to do with rapid transit. The entire thing is propped up by subsidies. Is it right to make people that don't ride the bus pay for others to ride the bus in an entity that continues to get less and less efficient? We'll continue this debate into the next hour. So give us a call if you'd like to join the conversation, 303-696-1971. But now it's time for Bill Thorpe's You Choose the News.
Yes, it's that time of the morning where we make questionable decisions. Once we found out that those in charge do not wake up until 7 o'clock, oh, yeah, Jeff and I are going to take full advantage here on 710 KNUS. So for the next 8 minutes or so, we are going to take our careers into our own tiny little hands and do something called America's favorite fake radio news game show, You Choose the News. Yes, I have scoured the interwebs for moments this morning. There were a lot of stories that I found. I had to choose some of them, then give them ridiculous headlines so that we can play this fake radio news game show. And as always, Blake Olson joining us from the news department. Gentlemen, here are our questionable stories for perusal this morning. Headline number 1, hunting for a winner. Headline number 2, unexpected guests. Headline number 3, how about Adolf? And headline number 4, New York City. Mr. Hunt, your choice, sir.
Because of that great Pace Picani advertisement, New York City.
Get a rope. I'm glad you recognized that one, my friend, because we find ourselves in Ontario for this one, in Essex County. Recently, police are investigating a very, very strange set of circumstances involving the theft of a tractor trailer. Yeah, and they're thinking might be some of those dastardly criminals, maybe from New York City, because the 53-foot trailer contained salsa and dip. Yes, they stole salsa and dip, approximately $35,000 of salsa and dip.
Wow.
Yeah, the transport truck was later returned to location, so they stole the entire semi and then returned the cab later after they had disconnected it.
The teenage boys that stole that. I've got a bunch of teenage boys.
$35,000 in salsa? That's just, dude, unless someone's like stocking up for the Bad Bunny
It may have come from my family.
Okay, good. I thought someone was just early planning for the NFL halftime show. Notice the Bad Bunny reference there? Yes, it's totally not good. Okay, alrighty, here we go. Blake, your choice, sir. Hunting for a winner, unexpected guests, or how about Adolf?
Hunting for a winner.
Yeah, hunting for a winner. Busch Light is currently running a seasonal campaign where you could stock up on 19 years worth of Busch Light. Yes, 19 years of beer for free as long as your name is Hunter. Yes, the campaign is Busch Light's hunting cans. Yes, according to Busch Light, Hunter is once a coveted name, but now endangered territory. Its popularity has plummeted by more than 93%. So if your name is Hunter, or you legally change your name to Hunter, you can enter their new contest up until the end of October. Yeah, October 27th is the last day to enter, and you just prove that your name's Hunter, you change your name legally to Hunter, you get 19 years of free beer.
Oh, nice.
I know. That's quite a prize. Yeah.
I love it.
But, of course, normally it's 19 years. Normally they count it out based on weeks, and you're only earned so I know this because my brother won a year of Coca-Cola one year.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, it's a 6-pack a week. It was kind of disappointing because I can drink a lot of Coca-Cola. All right. Final choice this morning. Mr. Hunt, unexpected guest, or how about Adolf?
Unexpected guest.
Unexpected guest. A man was unpacking boxes in his brand new home in Bath, England recently when there was a knocking on the door. Well, it turns out Booking.com did not take down the listing that you could also rent his house. He's had both a bachelorette party and a kid's birthday party show up expecting to spend time in his house, and he goes, sorry, I live here now. That's awkward. Alrighty. Speaking of awkward, it's the end of You Choose the News. Back to you, sir.
We'll continue. You're listening to The Jeff and Bill Show.
KNUS.